This presentation is about medieval Biggar. It's a subject which has fascinated me for many years. This is a picture of a sculptured cross found near Biggar, belonging to the Dark Ages. It was found at Kirkhill Farm, which is on the road to Broughton. It dates to the 10th century. However, there are indications that Biggar had origins going back to the Saxon times. There was a St. Biggar who was venerated at Kilbucko near Biggar, and some people think that the same female saint gave her name to Biggar. Another suggestion is that Biggar is derived from Celtic word meaning soft land. Here, this is a motte, which was part of a Motte and Bailey castle. This was built probably in the time of Baldwin the Fleming, who was sheriff the whole of Lanarkshire. It also had a bailey. The bailey was in the garden of the Moat Park Manse. It was converted into a bowling green in 1867. The other thing that happened to this monument was that slit trenches were dug in the top of it by the Home Guard with a view to stopping German panzer tanks from entering Biggar. These are from the same coin. It's an Edward I penny from Canterbury. A number of coins belonging to the period of the Wars of Independence were found in the area around Biggar, particularly at Cross Crine, which at one time was the border between England and Scotland in 1337, when the English occupied most of southern Scotland. Some of these coins, however, may have been deposited at an earlier time. A number of Edward I pennies, for example, were found by the golf course in Biggar. And these probably do date to the time of Edward I, but there's no indication that there was a Battle of Biggar. This is a picture of the Cadger's Brig. Many people have associated this with William Wallace disguised as a cadger, which was a trader, not, as people assume, a beggar. The story goes that he was crossing this bridge to make an assessment of the English forces before the alleged Battle of Biggar in 1302. However, this never took place because the time that the Battle of Biggar was supposed to take place, a real battle took place at Roslin. The other thing against the bridge dating back to Wallace is it's basically a 17th century packhorse bridge, but it's been very much altered over the centuries, particularly in the 19th century. This is a picture of the Biggar Cross. This was a market cross. 1451, Biggar became a borough of barony. The Flemings were awarded this because of their services to the kings of Scotland. The hill on which this cross was erected was in front of what is now the Corn Exchange. The cross was severely damaged in 1820 during the celebrations to mark the coronation of George IV. The surviving bits were gathered up and put in the Corn Exchange in the gable. As for the mound, it was taken away. underneath the mound was found a Roman coin. It was alleged to be a gold aureus, but that's disappeared. Nobody knows really what happened to it. But certainly the story is interesting. Here is an old view of the collegiate church of St Mary's in Biggar. Incidentally, the church of St Mary's Biggar was not always known as St Mary's. Before it became a collegiate church in 1547, it was actually known as the Church of St Nicholas, which does make things rather confusing. The old prints are very valuable to give us an idea of the way in which a church has developed and how modern developments have affected the church over passage of time. The last major works were undertaken at St Mary's in the 1930s. Here is a picture of St Mary's Church after the restoration of the 1930s. People who come to St Mary's today think that the place was deliberately fortified, because what you see on the top of the church tower are what look like gun loops. And one could be forgiven for thinking this, because the collegiate church to some extent was set up as a result of the murder of Lord John Fleming while he was out hawking and hunting by the Tweedy family. The Tweedy family had to pay a very massive fine for this. Initially, they paid to set up a chantry chapel, and then they had to pay further money to help Malcolm Fleming set up the collegiate church. Unfortunately, Malcolm never saw the collegiate church completed because he was killed at the Battle of Pinkie in 1547, the date that much of the work was completed. This is a rare survivor of something to do with the early church here in Biggar, the old Church of St Nicholas, and this tombstone with a quatrefoil cross is reckoned to be of the 14th century, probably somewhere around about 1280, 1300. Biggar was a town which had the misfortune to change hands a lot because of its proximity at one point or another to the English border. Indeed, several years after the Battle of Bannockburn, in the year 1318, Edward II was here in Biggar. This is a little known fact, but after his death, again the English came into the area to try and put Edward Balliol on the throne of Scotland. This they failed to do, but they seized most of the southern upland area and made the English border just south of Biggar. Here we're looking at the nave of what was the Church of St Nicholas. However, a lot of what you see here is of later period. You can see one of the windows, which is typical of the 16th century additions, which were made when St Nicholas was turned into the Collegiate Church of St Mary's, and you can also see a 19th century porch, and you can see a window on the left of the porch, which belongs to the 17th century. In the 17th century, a lot of alterations were made to the interior of the church because, of course, in the 17th century in particular, as a result of the Reformation, a lot of things were taken out of the parish churches which were thought to be of a papish nature. This is a plan of the Collegiate Church as it was in the 1880s. This drawing was done as part of a publication known as the Ecclesiastical Heritage by McGibbon and Ross. McGibbon and Ross's work, which covered several volumes, is very interesting. It covers all the churches in Scotland really up until the middle of the 16th century, plans and detailed descriptions written round about the 1880s. What was taken away was the building near the north transept, which ran off the chancel, which apparently was a very fine vestry building which disappeared. This does give us a very fine idea of the design of the collegiate church. A collegiate church is different to an ordinary parish church. It is set up with a provost who's in charge of the church, along with other religious personnel who had various different things that they needed to do for the community. One would be in charge of an old people's home, another would be in charge of education. These are several examples of what the religious people were supposed to do for the community. It shows just how community-minded some of the nobility were in the 16th century. Similarly, in Carnwath, a collegiate church was set up, of which the only surviving bit is St Mary's Aisle. This is a view of the tower of St Mary's and also a bit of the nave. This here is a view of the chancel. Now, the style of these windows is particularly interesting and is connected with the Low Countries. At this time, Scotland in the 16th century had a lot of connections not only with France but also the Low Countries, and churches like this were being made in what we know as Holland and Belgium today, but in those days it was known as Flanders. In fact, to be precise, it was part of what was then known as Burgundy. This is a view of the east end of the church, a reflection of the graveyard as well included. This here is of great interest to me because the style of architecture is similar to that of the Province Lordship and other such buildings in Glasgow, which were linked with the priests who served Glasgow Cathedral. This particular one has not been identified specifically as a 16th century building, but there are some interesting clues. If we take away the 4 stairs and most of the windows, except for the fairly narrow window next to the drain pipe, we get back to the 16th century, I think. Also, the way in which the stonework is arranged. But obviously, since those days, a lot of work has been done and this house has been considerably altered. But I would like to get inside the house and investigate it. Also, the roof has completely been redone. But there's some interesting questions here that need to be asked. If this is the only house which was actually built for the Collegiate Church of St Mary's Biggar. We now go to look at the Castle of Boghall. Afraid this particular map, it looks a bit out of focus, I'm afraid, but it does show the Castle of Boghall, which is shown actually basically in 2 separate drawings. On the left-hand side of the photograph, there's a tower house, and then on the right, there is a number of towers which really more or less represent Boghall Castle in 1596 when this plan was drawn. When exactly the Flemings moved here is an interesting question. We had really left Biggar and the House of Fleming the time of the Wars of Independence, the early part, but one of the things that has not as yet been covered is the fact that the Flemings played a close part in installing the kings of Scotland, the Stuarts. For example, one of the Flemings was responsible for assisting Robert the Bruce with the murder of the Red Comyn at the Greyfriars Church in Dumfries. And it was on this occasion that he uttered the famous words, "Al Mac Sicca," as he plunged his dagger into the body of the dying Comyn who had already been attacked by Robert the Bruce. The Stuarts were particularly grateful for the help given to them by the Flemings, and by the middle of the 14th century they became the Earls of Wigton. This is a drawing of Boghall Castle, which for many years was the principal residence of the Flemings until in the 16th century Cumbernauld Castle became their principal residence. They started work here in the 15th century and finished working on the castle area in 1670. We get an idea of what the castle may have looked like in 1670 because of a drawing done by Captain Grose. This was done in 1789. It shows the frontal towers, the gateway, another tower at the back, which was the Gurnall Tower, and it also shows the house. This is another drawing made about the same period as the one done by Captain Gross. This drawing was done for an article, I believe, in the Scots magazine. It does show the house built in 1670 as being in pretty good order in the early part of the 19th century. It was used actually as a place for keeping French prisoners of war. Irving and Murray published this drawing, which shows the gunwale tower, as it's known, which is at the back of the castle next to the house, and it also shows the gatehouse and the two frontal towers, and also a bridge. But there are some inaccuracies in this drawing. It was done for publication, done by Irving and Murray in 1867. What was never revealed in any of these drawings was the presence of a L-shaped tower house. This was discovered during the excavations undertaken by myself with the assistance of pupils of Biggar High School, and this revealed that they built an L-shaped tower house before the walls around the castle, and this L-shaped tower house dates to round about 1400. Here we see the L-shaped part of the L-shaped tower house. We also see the toilet, and it was near the exit of the toilet that we made to find which dated the tower. Here is a picture of the toilet with the sloping the slope to take the effluent away. What was found was a groat of James I from Linlithgow, dating to the early part of the 15th century. This was quite a significant find, as it confirmed that the tower house was built at least by the early 15th century, probably before, probably indeed from the 1350s, when the Flemings became people of great influence, because they were the Earls of Wigton. The Stuart family gave them the title Earl of Wigton because one of the Flemings had gained the support of Robert the Bruce. He'd helped Robert the Bruce murder the Red Comyn in Dumfries, and it was then that he uttered the famous words, "I'll mak sicker," in other words, "I'll make sure," as he plunged his own dagger into the body of the dying Red Comyn. The Red Comyn was a person that Robert the Bruce wanted out of the way, and had actually attacked him in the Greyfriars Monastery in Dumfries. The history of the tower house is of some degree of interest. It survived really until about 1650, and in 1650 what happened was Boghall Castle was